I never thought I'd be afraid of my own house. But after what happened last October, I can't look at it the same way anymore. I was 23, fresh out of college, and living in my childhood home in suburban Michigan while I saved up for my own place. My parents had gone to visit my sister in Colorado for 2 weeks, and I had the whole house to myself. At first, it felt like freedom. No curfew, no rules, just me and the quiet neighborhood I'd grown up in. The first few days were normal. I'd come home from my retail job around 9, heat up some leftover pizza and binge whatever show I was into at the time. But on the fourth night, something small happened that I almost didn't notice. I came home and went straight to the kitchen. I was starving, and I remembered leaving half a sandwich in the fridge that morning. But when I opened it, the sandwich was gone. I stood there for a second, confused. I live alone. There's no one else here. Maybe I'd already eaten it and forgotten. I do that sometimes when I'm tired. I shrugged it off and made something else. 2 days later, I noticed my bedroom door was open when I got home. I always close it. Always. It's just a habit I've had since I was a kid. I stared at that open door from the hallway, and this uncomfortable feeling crept up my spine. But I convinced myself I must have forgotten. I'd been distracted that morning running late for work. It was possible. Then things started getting weirder. I'd find the thermostat turned up to 78 degrees when I kept it at 65. Lights would be on in rooms I hadn't entered in days. One morning I found a wet towel in the bathroom that I definitely hadn't used. It was draped over the shower rod, still damp like someone had just taken a shower. I started questioning my own memory. Was I losing it? Was the stress of work and being alone making me paranoid? I even Googled carbon monoxide poisoning because I'd read somewhere that it can make you confused and forgetful. I checked the detector. It was working fine, but then I found the toothbrush. I keep my toothbrush in the holder by the sink. It's blue. That morning there were 2 toothbrushes in the holder. Mine, and a red one I'd never seen before. I picked it up and the bristles were wet. My hands started shaking. Someone had used this recently. I dropped it in the trash and backed out of the bathroom, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I grabbed my phone and almost called the police, but what would I even say? Someone left a toothbrush in my house. They'd think I was crazy. I searched every room, every closet, under every bed, nothing. No one. The doors were locked, the windows were shut. I was alone, but I didn't feel alone anymore. That night I barely slept. Every creak, every settling sound the housemaid had me wide awake, staring at my bedroom door. I'd pushed my dresser in front of it before going to bed. At around 3 in the morning, I heard the toilet flush downstairs. I froze. My whole body went rigid under the blankets. I held my breath and listened. The house went quiet again. Too quiet. I didn't move. I didn't even reach for my phone. I just lay there, paralyzed, until the sun came up. The next morning, I called my dad. I tried to sound casual, but my voice was shaking. I told him about the weird stuff happening, and he said old houses do strange things. Pipes make noise. Maybe a draft was opening doors. He even laughed a little, trying to make me feel better. But he didn't live here. He didn't feel what I was feeling. I decided I needed proof. I wasn't going insane. So I set up my laptop in the living room before I left for work, angled toward the stairs in the hallway. I hit record and left. My shift felt like it lasted forever. I kept checking my phone, half expecting I don't know what. A notification? A sign? When I finally got home, it was dark outside. I unlocked the door and the house was silent. The laptop was still there, right where I'd left it. I sat down and opened the video file. 8 hours of footage. I started skipping through it, watching the empty hallway and fast forward. Nothing. I was about to close it when I saw movement. I paused, rewound, played it at normal speed. At 1:14 in the afternoon, the door to the basement opened, slowly, and someone stepped out. A man, probably in his 40s, wearing a dirty jacket and jeans. He stood in the hallway for a moment, just looking around like he was checking to see if anyone was home. Then he walked into the kitchen. I couldn't breathe. My stomach twisted into knots. I kept watching. He opened the fridge, took out a jug of orange juice and drank straight from it. He grabbed some crackers from the pantry, ate a few, and then walked back toward the basement door. Before he went down, he stopped and looked directly at the camera. Not at the laptop, at me. Like he knew I'd be watching this eventually. Then he smiled and disappeared back into the basement. I slammed the laptop shut and ran outside. I didn't grab my keys, my wallet, nothing. I just ran to my neighbor's house and banged on the door until they answered. I was hysterical. I couldn't form sentences. They called the police. 3 officers showed up and searched the house top to bottom. When they opened the basement door, I stayed outside. I couldn't go down there. I couldn't. They found him. He'd been living in a crawl space behind the furnace. There was a sleeping bag, some old blankets, empty food containers, and a duffel bag with clothes in it. He'd been there the whole time. The whole time I'd been alone in that house, he was below me, eating my food, using my shower, sleeping 20 feet underneath my bedroom. The officers said he'd probably been coming and going through the basement window. It didn't latch properly. My dad had been meaning to fix it for years. The man didn't resist arrest. He didn't say a word. He just stared at me as they walked him out in handcuffs, that same smile on his face. They told me he had a history of breaking and entering. He'd done this before. Found empty houses or people who lived alone and just moved in, quietly, carefully, sometimes for weeks. I moved out the next day. I couldn't stay there. I can't even drive past that house anymore without feeling sick. My parents sold it a few months later. I don't live alone anymore. I can't. And I check every lock, every window, every basement door wherever I go. Because the worst part isn't that he was there. It's that I had no idea. For days I walked around that house thinking I was safe, thinking I was alone. But I never was. I still can't listen to voicemails without my hand shaking. It's been 2 years, and I've changed my number 3 times, but the sound of that notification tone makes my stomach drop every single time. This happened when I was 23, living in a small rental house in rural Pennsylvania. It was one of those old farmhouses you find scattered along back roads. The kind landlords rent cheap because nobody really wants them. I took it because I'd just graduated college and was broke. The isolation didn't bother me. Actually, I liked it, or at least I thought I did. My parents had gone on a cruise somewhere in the Caribbean with no cell service. They'd be gone for 10 days. My younger brother was away at school. For the first time in my life, I had the strange feeling of being completely unreachable by my family, no safety net. It felt like freedom. The house had this old landline phone mounted on the kitchen wall. You know, the kind with the curly cord. I never used it, didn't even know the number, but it came with the place, and the landlord said it was included in the rent, so I left it alone. In 3 months of living there, it had never rung, not once, until that Tuesday night. I was watching something on my laptop in bed when I heard it, that shrill mechanical ringing cutting through the silence. It startled me so badly I actually gasped. I sat there for a moment, just listening to it ring. 4 times, 5. Then it stopped. I went back to my show, but I couldn't focus. Something about that phone ringing felt wrong, like a door opening in a house you thought was locked. 20 minutes later, it rang again. This time I got up and walked to the kitchen. The phone looked almost sinister in the dim light, just hanging there on the wall. I picked it up on the 4th ring. Hello? Silence. But not empty silence. I could hear something breathing, faint, steady, and behind it a weird static, almost like wind. Hello? I said again, louder this time. The breathing continued. Then after maybe 5 seconds, the line went dead. Wrong number, I told myself. Just some weird wrong number. I made myself tea, checked that the doors were locked, and went back to bed. But I left my bedroom door open. I needed to hear if that phone rang again. It did. At 1:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I grabbed my cell phone when I heard it, my heart already pounding. I didn't answer. I let it ring and ring until it stopped. Then I waited, sitting up in bed, staring down the dark hallway toward the kitchen. My phone buzzed. A notification. Voicemail from an unknown number. My landline had voicemail. I didn't even know that. I should not have listened to it. I know that now. But at the time, I was more confused than scared. I needed to know who was calling. I dialed into the voicemail system, entered the default password that was written on a sticker on the phone's base, and listened. At first, just that breathing again, but then a voice. Low, male, calm. I can see you haven't gone to sleep yet. My blood went cold. Your bedroom light's still on. I dropped the phone. Actually dropped it, and it clattered against the kitchen floor. I ran to my bedroom window and yanked the curtain shut, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the fabric. Then I offed the lights. All of them. The entire house went dark. I stood in my bedroom breathing hard, trying to think. My nearest neighbor was half a mile away. The police station was 20 minutes. I grabbed my car keys, but then I stopped. What if he was outside? What if walking to my car was exactly what he wanted? I locked myself in my bedroom and called 911. I told them everything. The dispatcher stayed on the line with me, and I could hear her radio crackling as she sent a unit out. She said it would be 15 minutes. It was the longest 15 minutes of my life. I sat in the corner of my room, away from the windows. Every sound made me flinch. The house settling, the wind, my own breathing. The police arrived, 2 officers, and they searched everything. The yard, the woods around the house, inside every room, every closet. They checked the phone, listened to the voicemail themselves. I watched their faces change as they heard it. But they found nothing. No footprints, no sign of anyone. They drove around the surrounding area, checked the road. Nothing. One officer, the older one, told me it was probably some kid playing a prank. He said people find out numbers for vacant landlines and make calls like this for fun. He seemed confident, sure of himself. But his partner, younger, maybe late 20s, pulled me aside as they were leaving. "Do you have somewhere else you can stay tonight?" he asked. I could go to a friend's, I guess. Why?" He glanced back at the other officer, then lowered his voice. "That voicemail. The thing about your light being on." He paused. "There's no line of sight to your bedroom window from the road. We checked. Whoever said that was on your property." I stayed at my friend's apartment that night, and the next night. I told my landlord I was breaking the lease. I didn't care about losing my deposit, but here's the part that still keeps me up at night. When I went back 3 days later to pack my things, I checked the voicemail again. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to hear it one more time to convince myself it was real. There were 4 new messages, all from the same number. All received over the past 3 nights while I was gone. The first one was that same breathing. Nothing else. The second one, his voice. "You're not here." The third, "Where did you go?" And the fourth message, left the night before. "I'll wait until you come back home." I never went back. I had friends pack up my stuff. I moved 2 hours away to a place with neighbors close by. Street lights, people. But sometimes late at night I wonder if he's still waiting. If he watches other houses now. If someone else has gotten a call. The police never found him. The number was a burner, untraceable. No evidence, no suspect. Just a voice on a recording and the sick certainty that someone had been standing in my yard, watching my window while I was alone in that house. I think about that a lot. How close he was, how thin the walls were, how easy it would have been. I don't live alone anymore. I don't think I ever will again. And I never ever answer calls from numbers I don't recognize. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who checks every lock twice before bed. But after what happened last winter, I can't help it. This happened in January of last year. I was house-sitting for my aunt in rural Pennsylvania. She'd gone to Florida for 3 weeks, and I'd just lost my apartment lease in Philadelphia. So the timing worked out perfectly. Her place was about 40 minutes outside Pittsburgh, one of those old farmhouses surrounded by acres of nothing but frozen fields and bare trees. The first week was honestly kind of nice, quiet, peaceful. I'd work remotely during the day, make dinner, watch TV at night, the kind of solitude that feels luxurious when you're used to hearing your neighbors through paper-thin walls. It was a Tuesday night when things started feeling wrong. I'd finished dinner around 7 and was washing dishes when I noticed the kitchen faucet was dripping. Not unusual, except I was absolutely certain I'd turned it off completely. I twisted the handle tight and went back to the living room. 20 minutes later, I heard it again, drip, drip, drip. I walked back into the kitchen and the faucet was running. Not dripping, running. A steady stream of water pouring into the sink. My stomach did this weird flip, but I told myself old houses have plumbing issues. The handle was probably loose. I turned it off again, harder this time, and made a mental note to tell my aunt about it. But then it happened with the bathroom sink. I'd brushed my teeth, turned off the water, and gone to my bedroom. 10 minutes later, I heard it, water running full blast down the hall. When I checked, the bathroom faucet was on completely, steam rising from the hot water that had been flowing long enough to fog the mirror. That's when my hands started shaking. I turned it off and stood there in the doorway, staring at that faucet like it might move on its own. The house was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. I checked every window lock, every door. Everything was secure. I was alone. I barely slept that night. Every sound felt amplified. The house settling, the wind against the windows, the furnace kicking on. But nothing else happened, and by morning I'd almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. Maybe I hadn't turned the faucets off as well as I thought. Maybe the handles were just loose. Wednesday was fine. Thursday was fine. I started to relax. Friday night I made the mistake of taking a sleeping pill. My anxiety had been building all week and I just wanted one solid night of rest. I took it around 10 p.m. and was out cold within 30 minutes. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but the house felt different, wrong. You know that feeling when you wake up in the middle of the night and something in your gut tells you to stay still. That's what this was. I was lying there in the darkness trying to figure out what had pulled me from sleep when I heard it. Water running. Not in the bathroom this time, in the kitchen. The sound was coming from directly below my bedroom. My mouth went completely dry. I hadn't left my bed. I hadn't touched any faucet since before I took the pill. And now water was running downstairs in the middle of the night. I grabbed my phone, 2:47 a.m., and on the flashlight my hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped it. I sat there for what felt like an hour but was probably only a few minutes trying to decide what to do. The water just kept running. Finally, I forced myself out of bed. I crept to the bedroom door and opened it slowly. The hallway was pitch black except for the beam from my phone. I could hear the water clearly now, echoing through the old house. Every step down those stairs felt like it took forever. The wood creaked under my feet no matter how carefully I moved. When I reached the bottom, I could see the kitchen doorway ahead, and there was a faint light coming from inside, the light above the sink that I definitely hadn't left on. I stood in the doorway and my blood turned to ice. The kitchen sink was overflowing. Water was cascading over the sides, flooding the countertop, pouring onto the floor. The faucet was turned on full blast, both hot and cold, and steam was rising in clouds. But that's not what made me freeze. Few drawers in the kitchen were open, few cabinet doors were open too. I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe, I just stood there staring, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. And that's when I noticed the chairs. Chairs from the dining table had been pulled out. My phone slipped from my hand and clattered on the floor, and I ran. I didn't think. I didn't grab anything, I just ran straight for the front door, fumbling with the locks, my fingers barely working. When I finally got it open, I sprinted to my car in nothing but sweatpants and a t-shirt. I sat in that freezing car with the doors locked, engine running, heater blasting, staring at the house. Every light was off except that one over the kitchen sink. I called 911. The police arrived about 20 minutes later. 2 officers. They searched the entire house, every room, every closet, the basement, the attic. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no footprints in the snow around the house except mine from running to the car. All the windows were locked from the inside. Both doors were locked from the inside. They found exactly what I'd described. The open drawers and cabinets. The pulled-out chairs. But here's the thing that still keeps me awake at night. The thing the older officer told me before they left. He said, "Son, I've been doing this job for 23 years and I've seen a lot of strange things, but I've never seen someone break into a house just to turn on the water and open some drawers. That's not how burglars work." I asked him what he thought happened. He looked at me for a long moment, then glanced back at the house. "I think," he said quietly, "that someone has a key to this house. And I think they wanted you to know they could come and go whenever they wanted, even while you were sleeping." I stayed in a motel that night. I called my aunt in Florida the next morning and told her everything. She went completely silent on the phone. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded strange, distant. She said, "I need to tell you something. I moved to that house 6 years ago, and about 3 years ago I started finding things moved around. Small things. A book I didn't remember moving. The thermostat changed. Lights on in rooms I hadn't been in. I thought I was losing my mind." She paused, and I could hear her breathing shakily. "That's part of why I wanted you to house sit. I wanted to know if I was crazy, if I was imagining it." I never went back to that house. My aunt hired someone to pack up my things. She sold the property 4 months later and wouldn't tell me who bought it. But sometimes late at night I still wonder who had that key. I wonder if they watched me sleep. I wonder how many times they were in that house while I was there. And I wonder if they kept the key. These are Home Alone horror stories. If you enjoyed these stories and want more scary stories,